My name is Kara Ellison. I am 32 years old. And for the last 4 years, I sent my parents $2,000 every single month. That is $96,000. I counted. On my wedding day, the one day in 32 years I asked them to show up, not one of them came. I called my mother from the parking lot in my wedding dress. She answered on the 4th ring. And the 3 words she said ended everything between us. I grew up in Harwick, a quiet suburb south of Portland, Maine, where the lawns were always trimmed and nobody talked openly about money unless it belonged to someone else. There were 2 of us in the house, me and my younger sister, Naomi. 4 years apart, same parents, completely different rules. I was the straight A student, the scholarship kid, the one who went to university and then medical school, without asking my parents for a single dollar after my 18th birthday. Not for tuition, not for rent, not for food. I worked 3 jobs during undergrad: tutoring, campus bookstore, weekend shifts at a nursing home. Nobody asked me to. I simply understood that this was what was expected of me. Naomi was different. She dropped out of community college twice. She found herself through a 200-hour yoga teacher training program our parents paid $8,000 for. She married a car salesman named Derek Hale at 24, and their wedding, a restaurant affair on the Portland waterfront, was funded almost entirely by our parents. Dress, flowers, honeymoon contribution.
When I once asked why I had never received anything close to that kind of support, my mother, Sandra, gave me a look like I had asked her to explain gravity. "Naomi is sensitive," she said. "She needs us more." My father, Ray, nodded from his recliner. He always nodded when Sandra spoke. I did not resent Naomi then. I thought that was simply how families worked. The strong one carries the weak one. I did not yet understand that I was being trained. In June 2021, my father lost his job at a manufacturing plant in Portland. He had worked there for 30 years as a floor supervisor. The company downsized, eliminated his department, and left him at 57 with no college degree and a retirement fund that covered about 14 months. I was 28, in my first year of emergency medicine residency at Maine Medical Center. My salary was $62,000 before taxes. After deductions, insurance, and student loan payments, I took home roughly $3,800 a month. My mother called on a Tuesday, crying. They could not make the mortgage. My father would not get out of bed. I did the math on a napkin in the hospital break room at 2 in the morning. $2,000 a month. That left me $1,800 for rent, food, gas, and everything else. It was tight. It was possible. I set up the automatic transfer that same night. I told myself it was temporary. 6 months, maybe a year. I opened a spreadsheet and started a green row. Month 1, $2,000. Running total at the bottom, $2,000. That word, temporary, lived inside my head for 4 years. I worked 80-hour weeks in the ER. I lived in a 400-square-foot studio with a mattress on the floor and a microwave from Goodwill. Most of my meals came from the hospital cafeteria: $4 salads, day-old sandwiches, whatever was left on the warming trays after the night shift started. Meanwhile, when I visited my parents at Christmas 2021, I found new hardwood floors in the living room, new kitchen appliances, a French door refrigerator, a retiled bathroom. My mother gave me a tour like she was on a renovation show. Nobody asked about residency. Nobody asked about my apartment. Nobody asked if I was eating enough. Nobody said thank you. At that same Christmas dinner, Naomi pulled up in a new sage green Honda, still with dealer plates. My mother beamed. I asked who paid for it. Nobody answered. I drove home in my 2014 Civic with 211,000 miles on the odometer. The second year was worse. The work I could manage. The ER was predictable in its chaos, and I had been trained for bodies in crisis. What I had not been trained for
was watching my family celebrate someone else with my money while pretending I did not exist. That spring, Naomi had a pregnancy scare.
A false alarm, resolved within days. My mother drove 2 hours to sit with her. Soup, flowers, a stuffed bear from the gift shop. That same week, I was hospitalized for dehydration after a 14-hour shift. I called my mother from the IV chair. She answered between bites of something. "Oh, honey, drink some water. I cannot come up. Naomi needs me this week." By Naomi's autumn wedding that same year, my running spreadsheet total had climbed past $36,000. I gave a toast. I smiled in the photos. Afterward, I sat alone in my car in the parking lot. The photographer had gathered my parents and Naomi for a family photo, the 4 of them. I was standing 6 feet away. Nobody called me over. The camera flashed. I was not in the frame. In spring 2023, I sat down one evening and looked at my student loan balance. $274,000. Interest was accruing faster than I could cover the minimums. I called my mother on a Saturday morning to ask about reducing the monthly transfer from $2,000 to $1,500. Still generous. Still 30% of my net income. She cut me off before I could finish. After everything we sacrificed for you. It was her weapon, and she kept it loaded at all times. I backed down. The transfers continued at $2,000 a month. 3 days later, I opened Instagram and saw a photo of her weekend trip to Cape Cod. Lobster dinner, ocean view, caption, "Blessed life, grateful heart." Blessed, with my $2,000 funding the lobster. Garrett Cole walked into the hospital in July 2023. A licensed master electrician contracted to rewire the third-floor electrical system. We met in the cafeteria. He had brought his own lunch. Roast beef sandwich, an apple, a thermos of coffee. He sat across from me while I ate the same wilted Caesar salad I had been eating for 2 years. He pushed half his sandwich across the table. His mother had made extra. That was how it started. He was steady in a way I had forgotten people could be. No performance, no agenda, just a man who showed up and said what he meant. It took me 3 months to tell him about the $2,000. We were sitting in his truck in the hospital parking lot in October, heater running. I said it fast. He was quiet for a long time, counting on his fingers, the way people do when a number is too large to absorb casually. Then he said 2 words I had never heard before. They need it? Nobody had ever asked me that question. I felt the ground shift beneath everything I had built my silence on. I brought Garrett home to Harwick for Thanksgiving 2023. My mother opened the door and looked him up and down the way a jeweler examines a stone she has already decided is fake. An electrician. Well, that is good, honest work. My father shook his hand without standing from the couch and asked whether the business did well. Naomi, 7 months pregnant, leaned against the kitchen counter and asked whether he had employer-provided health insurance. This from a woman who had never held a job with benefits in her life.
Garrett handled all of it with a patience I envied. After dinner, I went to the kitchen for water. The hallway was dark, and my parents did not know I was there. I heard my mother. "An electrician? Our daughter, the doctor, is marrying an electrician." And then my father, the man whose mortgage I paid every single month, said something I will never forget. "As long as the checks keep coming, who cares who she marries?" I stood on that hardwood floor I had paid for and held very still. In February 2024, Garrett proposed on the hospital rooftop after my Saturday overnight shift. No ring box. He had the ring loose in his jacket pocket because he did not want me to figure it out early. The sun was coming up over Portland. I was still in scrubs. I said yes before he finished asking. I called my parents that afternoon. Silence. Then, "I hope you have thought this through." No congratulations. An hour later, my father called back alone, voice low. This wedding had better not affect our arrangement. We depend on you. You owe us this. Do not pull the rug out. I hung up and told Garrett every word. He looked at me and said, "You do not owe them your life." I knew he was right. I also knew that knowing and doing are two entirely different things. From March through May 2024, Garrett and I planned a modest wedding, a barn venue in Kennebunkport, white clapboard, string lights, a view of the river through 100-year-old windows, capacity for 85 guests, total budget $28,000 from Garrett's savings and my tax refund. No family money, no parental contribution. I invited my mother to help me choose a dress. She had one answer for everything that spring. "I'm busy. Naomi's nursery needs painting." My parents' save-the-date card arrived in mid-April. 2 weeks of silence, then a text from Sandra. "October is difficult. Naomi is due in November. I need to be available." October was 5 months before November's due date. That same evening, my phone dinged with the automatic transfer notification. Month 36. Running total, $72,000. I stared at it the way you stare at a receipt for something you no longer want, but cannot return. In July 2024, my mother organized Naomi's baby shower like a military campaign. Rented hotel venue, catering, 40 guests, a pink balloon arch, a 3-tiered cake. I drove 2 hours to attend. I brought a gift, a seafoam green baby blanket I had crocheted over 3 weeks of stolen minutes in the hospital break room, hooking yarn under fluorescent lights while monitors beeped behind me. At the shower, my mother stood in front of the room and delivered a radiant speech about how becoming a mother was the most important thing a woman could do. Nobody mentioned my upcoming wedding. Nobody asked about the venue, the dress, the date. When Naomi got to my gift, she held it up, turned it over once. "Oh, cute. Did you make this?" Then she set it on the pile and reached for the next box. After the party, while I was stacking chairs and collecting paper plates, my mother pulled me aside near the dessert table. "Can you do $2,500 this month? The shower cost more than expected." I said I was paying for my own wedding and could not increase. She tilted her head in the particular way she had when I was failing to meet her expectations. "You always find a way. You are the strong one." She only called me the strong one when she needed more money. Then, in August 2024, a routine banking letter required me to log into the joint savings account for the first time in years. I opened it at 2 in the morning. The balance should have been substantial. 38 months of deposits, even with mortgage payments coming out. The balance was $340. I scrolled the transaction history. Regular, large, relentless withdrawals. $1,500 to Naomi Hale. $2,000 to Derek Hale's dealership. $800 to Naomi Hale. $3,200 to Derek Hale Auto Group. $1,000 to a Cape Cod resort. $1,200 to a furniture store. $700 to a salon. The money was not keeping my parents afloat. It was funding Naomi's lifestyle and Derek's failing car dealership investment, with some left over for vacations and renovations. I screenshotted every transaction and saved them to a folder on my laptop. Then I opened my spreadsheet and added 2 new columns. I cross-referenced each withdrawal to Naomi or Naomi-adjacent expenses. The math took 40 minutes. 43% of everything I had sent went directly to my sister or her husband. 22% went to vacations, renovations, and personal spending. 31% went to the actual mortgage, the stated reason I had started sending money in the first place. I sat with it for 3 days before telling Garrett. During those 3 days, I went back through my text messages with my mother. 2 years of conversations.
every guilt trip text, every "I am so stressed about bills, your father cannot sleep, we just do not know how we will manage," had arrived within 48 hours of a large withdrawal from the joint account. The correlation was not emotional, it was operational. She texted me distress signals to keep the money flowing, then redirected the money to Naomi before the ink dried. The pattern was mathematical, provable, undeniable. When I showed Garrett the bank statements on a Saturday morning, he scrolled through the screenshots slowly, jaw tightening. He did not yell or curse, just breathed through his nose, the way he did when processing something too large for words. 43% to Naomi, he said, and they told you it was for the mortgage. He looked at me. And you are still sending $2,000 a month? I told him I had already canceled the automatic transfer. On Tuesday, in the parking lot, banking app open, pressing cancel. For the first time in 38 months, my phone would not ding with a transfer notification on the first of the month. The silence where that notification used to be felt louder than any sound I had ever heard. 2 weeks later, October arrived, with no transfer, no ding, no $2,000 leaving my account. My father noticed first. A text on October 3rd. "The transfer didn't go through. Can you check?" I replied that I would look into it. I did not look into it. Then my mother sent an email. She used email for what she considered serious matters, the way some people use certified mail. Subject line: transfer issue. Urgent. She called the $2,000 a payment. Not a gift, not help, a payment. Like I owed a debt that would never reach zero. She also mentioned that October 19th, my wedding day, did not work for them because Naomi's due date was getting closer. After everything we sacrificed for you. I did not reply. I took a screenshot and added it to the folder, then sat down and addressed wedding invitations. Within 2 weeks, 63 of 85 guests had RSVP'd yes. My parents? Nothing. Then, on October 8th, 11 days before my wedding, I was scrolling Instagram during a break when I saw a cousin's repost. A pink and gold invitation graphic with cursive lettering. A gender reveal party at Naomi and Derek's house. Saturday, October 19th, 5 o'clock. My wedding day. I checked the original post on Naomi's account. She had uploaded it 3 weeks earlier. My mother had liked it. My mother had commented, "Cannot wait," with a pink heart. 3 weeks ago, while I was still waiting for their RSVP. I called Naomi. She answered bright and unbothered. When I pointed out that her gender reveal was on my wedding day, she said October 19th was the only day that worked for everyone. I'm pregnant. This is about my baby. Not everything is about you. I held the phone away from my face, breathed, put it back. Mom RSVP'd to your party 3 weeks ago. She hasn't RSVP'd to my wedding. Naomi was quiet for 2 seconds. Well, maybe you should have picked a different date. I hung up. I did not change my wedding date. 1 week before the ceremony, I drove to Harwick alone and sat at my parents' kitchen table. The table where I had done homework, argued about curfew, opened birthday cards with $10 bills inside. I asked them one more time if they were coming. My mother said Naomi was 8 months pregnant and needed help setting up for the reveal. I told her the ceremony was at 2. The party was at 5. She could come to the ceremony. She said they needed to help set up. My father asked about the money. I said this was not about the money. It is always about the money, he said. You stopped paying. We noticed. I stood up. My chair scraped the new hardwood floor I had paid for. I asked one final time. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at the floor. My mother looked back at me with something practiced. Not quite apology, not quite defiance. Something in between. We will try. I drove 40 minutes to hear those 3 syllables, and I knew exactly what they meant. Garrett's mother, Doris, arrived from Lewiston on Wednesday. She brought an apple pie, 3 casseroles, a garment bag with her church dress, and a hug that lasted 11 seconds. I counted because I had forgotten what it felt like to be held by a mother figure without conditions attached. My son chose well, she said. I am proud of you both. My grandmother, Ruth, my mother's mother, 79 years old, sharp as surgical steel, called every evening in the days before the wedding. She had already RSVP'd yes the day the invitation arrived, with a handwritten note tucked inside. Wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart.
On the morning of October 19th, I woke in the bridal suite above the barn's reception area. Whitewashed walls, a window facing the river, the light gray and gold, the way Maine mornings look in autumn when the fog has not yet burned off. Garrett had texted at midnight, "Tomorrow you become my family officially." I checked my phone. 0 messages from my parents. 0 missed calls. Ruth arrived at 11 in a navy dress with pearl buttons, her white hair pinned back with a clip I remembered from childhood. She stopped in the bridal suite doorway when she saw me in my dress. Her chin trembled. "Your mother should be here." She reached into her leather bag and produced a small brooch, blue enamel, forget-me-nots set in tarnished silver. This belonged to my mother. Something old, something blue, something better than what they deserved to see. I pinned it to the inside of my dress, near my heart, where nobody could see it, but I would feel it all day. That was the only tear I allowed myself before the ceremony. At 2 in the afternoon, I walked myself down the aisle. 78 of 85 guests were present. Garrett was already crying before I reached him. We exchanged vows. He spoke first. "I choose you not because it is easy, but because you are worth choosing." The barn erupted when we were pronounced married. 78 people clapping, some standing, Doris openly weeping, Ruth sitting straight-backed and very still, the way women of her generation hold themselves when they are trying hard not to fall apart. At 3:30, between the ceremony and the reception, I stepped outside to the parking lot alone. I called my mother. 4 rings. She answered. I told her I had just gotten married. She said, "We're at Naomi's. The reveal was beautiful. Pink. It's a girl." I told her again, "I just got married." A pause. Then 3 words. "Don't bother us." The line went dead. I stood in the October air holding my phone. The brooch pressed against my chest through the satin. Somewhere inside the barn, my husband was pouring champagne for 78 people who chose to be there. I stood in that parking lot for 4 minutes. I watched the phone screen change time twice. Something harder than crying settled in me. The quiet stillness that comes when a decision has already been made and your body is waiting for your hands to catch up. I opened the banking app. Joint savings account. Balance, $340. I submitted the request to remove myself as co-owner. Then I went to my personal checking, removed the secondary routing to my father's personal account, $200 a month I had been sending him for gas and groceries, and canceled it. Total financial severance, completed in 4 minutes and 12 seconds, standing in a gravel parking lot in a wedding dress. Then I walked back inside, found my husband's eyes across the crowded barn, and said, "I need to dance at my wedding." He took my hand. 30 minutes later, at Naomi's gender reveal party in Harwick,
My father's phone buzzed in his pocket. He was holding a slice of pink cake when he looked at the screen. Co-owner removed. Secondary transfer canceled. He called me 7 times. Each call went to voicemail. My phone was on silent on a table inside the barn, where 78 people were eating dinner and toasting our marriage. His texts arrived in rapid succession. Call me now. What did you do? You cannot just cut us off. He drove to the nearest ATM and withdrew from the savings account. Balance: $340. He stared at the screen. Then he drove back to Naomi's house and walked in loud enough for the whole room to hear. She shut everything down. Nobody explained, because explaining would have meant admitting where the money had been coming from all along.
November came cold and gray. I went back to work, year 4, chief resident. For the first time in 38 months, my paycheck arrived and $2,000 stayed in my account. I redirected it to my student loan. The first extra payment hit the balance like a stone dropping into still water. At this rate, I would be debt-free by 37 instead of 42. Ruth called on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. She was hosting the whole family. She told me my mother had been telling everyone I had abandoned them, that I had stopped helping, chosen my husband over my parents, turned my back on family. "I'll be there, Grandma," I said, "and I'll bring the receipts." I meant it literally. I printed the bank statements. 4 years, 48 pages, highlighted in yellow. On Thanksgiving, I sat at Ruth's dining table with 19 people: aunts, uncles, cousins, her neighbor who had been coming for 20 years. My mother was already performing when I arrived, the practiced wounded act she had been rehearsing for weeks. After dinner, Ruth stood at the head of the table, placed both hands flat on the surface, and said that before dessert, the family needed to address what had been going on. My mother straightened her back and found her voice. I let her begin. Then I opened the manila envelope and set the stack of bank statements on the table. For 3 years and 2 months, I said, I sent $2,000 every month. That was $76,000 from the joint savings account, plus $12,000 through the secondary transfer to my father's personal account. $88,000 total. 43% went directly to Naomi or Derek's dealership. 22% went to vacations, renovations, spa trips, and personal spending. 31% went to the mortgage, the actual stated reason I had begun sending money in the first place. 19 people at the table. Nobody spoke. My mother's voice came out sharp and thin. Those were private family finances. I told her my name was on the account. My uncle put on his reading glasses and pulled a page toward him. My father stood up, started to speak. Ruth said his name quietly. He sat back down without finishing his sentence. Ruth was 4'11" and 79 years old, and he sat down. I looked at my mother and told her what had happened on October 19th. I called you. You said 3 words. Don't bother us. You were at Naomi's gender reveal, the one she scheduled on the same day as my wedding. I was not asking for the money back. I was not suing anyone. I was telling the family the truth because she had spent the last month telling everyone I had abandoned them. I did not abandon them. I stopped paying for the privilege of being ignored. My aunt spoke carefully. Was it true? $88,000? My mother's eyes moved around the table, searching for an ally, and found none. It is complicated. She doesn't understand. Ruth cut her off. What did she not understand? The numbers added up. The bank statements circled the table like evidence in a trial nobody had called for. Naomi, pale, held baby Lily closer. Derek pushed his chair back. My father tried once more. This was family money. She was their daughter. My uncle looked up from the statements. Family money doesn't get laundered through one person's salary. My mother began to cry. The same performance tears she had used on me for 4 years to keep the transfers flowing. Ruth looked at her daughter steadily. I asked you 2 weeks ago if she was helping you with money. You said a little. $88,000 is not a little. My mother opened her mouth, closed it. For 5 seconds, I counted. She had nothing. Then she hardened. She has always been dramatic. She is doing this for attention. I stood up. Garrett and I put on our coats. Ruth followed us into the hallway. She moved slowly and with purpose. She took my arm and said quietly that she had not known. She swore she had not known. Then she reached for her left hand and pulled off her wedding ring, a thin gold band worn smooth by 57 years, and pressed it into my palm. Her fingers closed over mine. The people who choose you do not need to be paid, she said. We walked to the truck. Cold November air rushed in behind us, clean and unforgiving. I did not look back. In January 2025, my father found a job, warehouse work at a distribution center, $17.50 an hour, 5 days a week. The kind of job he had called beneath him for 4 years. My mother took a part-time position at a floral shop in Harwick, her first job in 14 years. She stopped posting about her blessed, grateful life on social media. Naomi and Derek sold the Honda and replaced it with a used Corolla. Derek's dealership investment collapsed. 11 of the 19 people at Thanksgiving reached out to me. Texts, calls, a few handwritten notes. Most said some version of the same thing. We didn't know. We should have asked. My aunt sent flowers to the hospital with a note. Your mother told us you were ungrateful. She was wrong. My cousin Marcus started a group text with me and 2 other cousins. He named it Family That Actually Talks. We texted every few days. Recipes, news, photos of nothing important. The small currency of people who stay in touch because they want to. Ruth called every Sunday afternoon. When people ask me if I have forgiven my parents, I say the same thing every time. When they are ready to have a real conversation, not a performance, I will listen. The door is not locked. It is closed. The difference matters. My mother has not called since Thanksgiving. My father called once, in early December. His voice was different, smaller, stripped of the authority he used to borrow from my mother. He said 4 words. I got a job. I said 1 word. Good. That was the whole conversation. 11 seconds. Not an apology, not a request, just a fact delivered to the one person who would understand what it meant. Naomi sent a photo of baby Lily in late January. No caption, just the image. Round cheeks, dark hair wrapped in a blanket I did not recognize. Below it, she has your eyes. I saved the photo. I did not respond. My spreadsheet is closed now. Final total at the bottom, $88,000. What I open instead is my student loan balance, down $6,000 since October. At $2,000 extra per month, I will be debt-free by 37. Garrett and I eat dinner at our kitchen table most nights. Real food, meals we cook together. No cafeteria tray, no midnight granola bars. Ruth's gold ring sits in a small wooden box on my nightstand. I do not wear it, but I see it every morning when I reach for my phone. I spent 4 years trying to buy my way into my own family.
$88,000. And the answer was always the same: not enough. The people who love you do not keep a running tab. The people who keep a running tab were never loving you. They were billing you. My phone does not ding on the first of the month anymore. The silence is the most expensive thing I have ever earned.
Take a moment to comment your city or country. I love connecting with you all. Thank you for listening and supporting, and be sure to subscribe for more stories. More are coming your way soon. Until next time, stay kind to yourself and stay strong.